What's up guys, Justin here with the CGEssentials.com. So in today's video we're going to check out a new add-on specifically designed to help you create realistic shadows inside of your scenes. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so Gobos Light Textures is a brand new asset for Blender designed to help you create more realistic shadows inside your scenes. Yeah, I guess it's less of an add-on and it's a little bit more like an asset library, but basically what it does is it comes with a series of different lights that allow you to generate more realistic shadows. So these are basically lights that are set up with image files in here so that when your light is projected into your scene, you're going to get shadows as if the lighting was coming from somewhere or some of it's being blocked. So in this particular situation, for example, it would give you lighting as if you had like tree branches or something like that. So you get more realistic shadows and therefore a more realistic scene. So there's multiple different categories of light included with this asset. So for example, you have animated leaves, which we can take more of a look at in a minute. You've got like caustic, so if you want to simulate underwater shadows, as well as things like forests and clouds and different geometric shapes and other things as well. So like the different windows and things like that. So let's go ahead and jump into Blender and see what this looks like. So when you download this, what it's going to do is it's going to come with a zipped asset file. So you're going to want to unzip that asset file and place it in whatever folder you want to store your assets in. But then you just jump into your preferences. And in this case, what I've done is I've dropped it inside of my lights folder because I already have a lights folder set up. But if you go to edit preferences and then file paths, you can also just add the folder just by clicking in the plus right here. And if you find that Gobos Light Textures folder, click on Add Asset Library. What that's going to do is it's going to add it as its own asset library, which you can then access by going down and finding it inside of the asset browser, like this. And so notice how there are a number of different light files contained in here. All of these are going to give you a different result depending on what you're looking for. So for example, let's say that we were to drag one of these in here. So for now, let's bring in one of these animated leaves files. So all you have to do in order to bring this in is you can just click and drag it into your scene and it's going to place this inside of your scene. So if I move this over like this, notice how we're not seeing anything yet. So this is only going to work for cycles right now. So Eevee does not support this yet. But if we were to toggle over into rendered mode, and then we need to make sure that we're in cycles. And so what this is going to do is it's going to use that light texture in order to generate lighting like this that does look like it's got tree branches blocking out some of the light. And so this can be really useful for generating lighting inside of a room or something like that. And so without using these before, what you would have had to do is you would have had to actually like generate or put the trees outside of a window and then shine a light across them like this. And so now what you can do instead is you could just put this light outside of a window or something like that, and you can actually simulate all of the different branches and everything in here without you actually having to add the geometry. So one of the interesting functions is, let's say I was to toggle back into material preview mode for a second. We'll get rid of this and I'm going to drop one of the window textures in here like this. So if I was to drag this window in here, move it up. And so let's say we're to toggle back into cycles. And so you can adjust the transformation over here if you decide that you want to do that. So in addition, you can also adjust a lot of things about these lights by using different lighting settings. So you can adjust things like the brightness of the light in order to get a more pronounced effect in here and also to cast more light in your scene. You can also adjust the color using the color setting right here. So let's say you wanted more of an orange light or a warmer light like this, you can adjust the color this way. So one thing to note about this is if you want this, because this is pretty pronounced on your wall right now, well, you want more fuzzy edges around your shadow. What you can do is you can adjust the radius right here. So notice how as I adjust the radius up in my scene, the shadows that are being cast are fuzzier. So you can use this in order to cast fuzzy shadows or the really pronounced shadows in your scene depending on the look that you're going for. So in addition, you can also adjust things like your spotlight size. So if your spotlight size goes up, notice how I'm getting more light around the edges using the spot size function right here. You can also adjust the blend, which is going to affect how pronounced the edge of the spot on the wall is, like this. So if you bring the blend down, for example, notice how that's really pronounced. If you bring it up, it's going to give you more of like a transition between dark and light around these edges, just like this. So note that these animated leaves functions do exactly what they sound like. They're actually animated. And it's going to be a little clunky because we're playing it live inside of cycles, but notice what you're going to get is you're actually going to get leaf movement in here. And maybe I should turn my radius back down so that this is a little more pronounced, but this is actually going to play a looping animation with the light. And I can't remember how many frames it is, but I know that it loops in the background. So if you render this, you're actually going to get a moving leaves texture. And really the best way to look at this is if you jump over into this Gobos Light Textures demo from Bproduction and play this, it's going to show you what this does. But basically what it's doing is it's been rendered using the animated leaves, and you can see how up on the screen, right, the animated leaves are actually moving inside of your scene as if the wind was blowing and it was making your trees and leaves move. So this is a really powerful way to simulate these shadows inside of your scene using your lights without actually having to add a bunch of trees in the background that are making Blender run a lot slower. So you can also adjust size using the mapping over in the shader editor for some of these lights. So for example, the caustics, if we've got this caustic texture in here right here, we could adjust this so that it gets bigger or smaller. So I could set this to 2 with the scale. Notice how that's going to change the size of what's shown in here. We could also adjust, whoops, that was not what I wanted. We could also adjust the width of the spotlight in order to get more of this effect in here. So you can use this to adjust the way that these textures sit in here using the mapping. That doesn't work as well for some of the animated tree. It does work really good for some of the repetitive textures. You could also keyframe the locations on this. So if you wanted it to move, for example, you could keyframe the different locations on here in order to get kind of a moving water look or something like that. So you could also combine this with a principled volume if you decided that you wanted to do that. So that definitely does allow you to get some interesting looks if you want to simulate like an underwater look, or if you want light beams, other things like that. You can definitely use the tools in here in order to do that. So I really like the idea of using the gobos in order to get more realistic lights in your scene. I think it's a lot faster than some of the other ways that we've had to do it in the past. But leave a comment below, let me know what you think. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.